Hey guys, Dr. Rebecca Warren here, and I wanted to jump on here and talk about something that I've been noticing a lot in my female clients that I'm coaching. You know, what I do on a daily basis is helping women to understand their hormones, understanding their bodies, and understanding how to heal their own bodies. But lately, I've had woman after woman mention these irregularities within their cycle, whether they're having 2 cycles in the same month, or it's taking longer for their cycle to get here, or their cycles feel heavier, or their PMS symptoms are getting worse. And so I think something that's really important to understand is how stress affects our menstrual cycle. Now, the title of this video is Coronavirus Affecting Your Menstrual Cycle? It's not the virus itself, but it's this pandemic that we're living through. Now, when I used to talk to people about stress before this whole thing started happening, I would have people sometimes say, well, I don't feel very stressed out, or work isn't stress. Sometimes we think about stress as this one thing. Maybe it's just work stress, or maybe I'm not going too crazy. But stress can be chemical, emotional, or physical, meaning there's chemicals and toxins in your environment that you're exposed to that puts your HPA axis into dysregulation. Broken relationships or things that you haven't processed or healed from, or fights and arguments that are really, really hard on you. And even physical things like car accidents and traumas, where your spine and what your spine looks like can affect how your internal body is working. So I wanted to share that because the reason why a lot of you guys are seeing such a change within your menstrual cycle is because of factors that you may not be realizing are happening. Stress is very, very powerful. And let me give you an example. One thing I mentioned to someone that I was coaching recently is that sometimes you could even be in a room and you might not be watching the news, but the news is on, and they're talking about death and mortality and fear and all these different things happening. And although you might not be paying attention, your mind, your brain is downloading this information. It's registering that things are not safe in your environment, and your internal body is going to change and adapt to that. Now, let me go ahead and tell you something. Your stress response system, men and women, but women, it's amazing and it's powerful. It's what's kept us alive as a species. But short-term stress and the appropriate response in the short term is good. Chronic stress is not. Now, I want to talk about a study that talks about stress and women. Now, if you followed me for any period of time, or if you get coached by me, you know that I talk about women's hormones, estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. They're not just for having babies. It has really amazing and powerful effects on your mood, on your drive, on your ability to lose weight, on your heart health, your bone health, your brain health. So estrogen and progesterone has a lot to do with other things besides just having a baby. But in this study, it came from, the Boston University School of Medicine, and they saw that stress reduces fertility in women. So now a new study, it was published, showed that researchers find higher levels of stress are associated with lower odds of conception for women. So the higher the woman weighted their stress levels and how they viewed their environment, the more difficult it was for them to get pregnant. So the association was also stronger for women under 35 years old. The researchers found that the higher the scores of at least 25 were 13% less likely to conceive than women that did not have stress. Now, this is just one study of many that's looking at how stress is going to affect conception. But what do you need for conception? You need proper hormone levels. If you're not able to conceive, then we're looking at some more internal imbalances, the same imbalances that are going to be affecting your estrogen and your progesterone. The same estrogen and progesterone that you need to adequately work to have a proper menstrual cycle. So you're not in pain or wondering where your menstrual cycle is, or wondering why you have 2 in the same month. Now, luteinizing hormone and follicular stimulating hormone are coming from the brain, okay? They're coming from the brain and the brainstem, more specifically. They're going down to the ovaries and telling the ovaries what to do. But if your body is overwhelmed, that signaling is not going to function correctly. So let me explain exactly what we're looking at here, and then we're going to talk about 4 ways that you can start implementing things today to help balance out your hormones. So the way that it works is you got the brain and the hypothalamus and the pituitary and the brainstem. Now the hypothalamus is this master control center, okay? It's looking at your environment and it's downloading what's happening in order to communicate with all the hormones in your body to adapt to what's going on in your environment. So ancestrally, if you're overwhelmed and stressed because a tiger is hunting you down, the hypothalamus says, this isn't good. Everything's going to go into this sympathetic response. It's all about survival. When you're out of danger, then your brain's going to go, okay, now it's time to go to parasympathetic, rest, digest, and heal. So the hypothalamus is going to register that information, talk to the pituitary. The pituitary, if you're under stress, will go and influence the adrenals. Now, I drew the adrenals here because a lot of people don't know where they're found, even though they hear about it. It's right above your kidneys. Now, the adrenals is going to release cortisol and adrenaline, okay? It's that hormone that wakes you up in the morning, or if it's imbalanced, can keep you up through the night. It's what kind of pushes you in a workout. Cortisol is what, you hear those stories about moms that they're a mom who's a kid stuck under a car and she can lift it up. Well, that's survival. You got to do what you got to do, and it's really, really great short term. So that cortisol will go back and allow that signaling to tell the brain, oh yeah, we're under stress. We are in survival mode, and the brain through the pituitary will then affect the ovaries. The best way that I can explain it is that if we're in the midst of a famine, it's not a good time to get pregnant. It's not a good time to have these estrogen and progesterone hormones going on, so your body's going to adapt to that stress. It's all about survival. But when you're chronically stressed, when you're chronically in survival mode, when you're chronically draining your adrenals because you're in this chronic stress mode, it's going to affect function all over. Just so you know, not just in your ovaries, even your thyroid will be affected. So what should you do? What right now in the midst of everything, what should you do? Here are the 4 things you should start doing. The first thing I want to talk about is adaptogens. So number 1, adaptogenic herbs. So adaptogens are exactly that. Herbs that help you adapt to external stressors. Now, adaptogens have been more popular here in the last few years, but they have been around for centuries, especially in Eastern medicine. Now, the name adaptogens was coined in 1947 by a Russian scientist. His name is Israel Breckham. And this is what qualifies an herb to be an adaptogen, okay? It's increasing the body's ability to cope with internal and external stressors. It exhibits stimulating effects after both single use and long-term use, and it helps normalize the functions of the body. So these herbs are going in and helping to balance this HPA axis dysregulation that happens when you're chronically under stress. Now, I do want to say the adaptogens, when you take them, you have to take them according to what your stress levels are. So sometimes I'll have people start adaptogens and they'll take 1 capsule and they don't notice a difference, and they're, stressed out about everything. And I'm like, well, yeah, 1 capsule is not going to help you adapt. So you do it according to your stress levels. Now, my favorite brand for adaptogenic herbs is Stress RX. Now, they have a mixture of 3 different adaptogens, okay? They got rhodiola, cordyceps, and ashwagandha. And I've seen amazing results with this. So if you're looking for some support to the external stressors that you're experiencing, go to StressRx. It's really awesome right now. If you use the code DRSWARREN, DRSWARREN, you get 40% off. Now is the best time to start with those supplementation. So starting out with adaptogens, okay, to help your body adapt. Now the next thing is grounding. We love grounding. We love grounding. Now, let's talk about this. Grounding isn't this kind of cure-all thing. It's not like this magic pill. Grounding is proving the fact that we're so disconnected from the way that we're supposed to be living. Grounding means going out barefoot. Now, there's so many different studies on grounding. I mean, there's this extensive study where they've looked at autoimmune disease and immune system and inflammation and how grounding affects that. There's another study I have over here that talks about grounding and its effect on blood flow, how that would affect cardiovascular health. But I want to share this one study I thought was really interesting. So the biological effects of grounding the human body during sleep as measured by cortisol levels, subjective reporting of sleep, pain, and stress. So what they did in this study, they took 12 subjects that complained of sleep dysfunction, having a lot of stress, pain, and had them ground. So they used a conductive pad that mimics the natural grounding that you get outside. And they tested the most accurate way you're supposed to test. So testing cortisol should be through saliva. So saliva tests were administered pre-grounding to determine their baseline. After they were grounding for weeks, I think it was about, here we go, for 8 weeks using their own beds and using the pad, the results indicate that grounding the human body to earth, which is also known as earthing, during sleep reduces nighttime levels of cortisol and resynchronizes cortisol hormone. And the changes were the most apparent in the female participants. So going outside, so this is what I recommend. I want you to put number 2 and number 3 together. I know there might be a lot of you guys that are concerned about going outside, then go in your backyard or go for a hike. And if you see someone, run the other direction. I know it's so imperative and so important right now to get in the sun, produce hormone D within your body to support your immune system, and go outside barefoot. So go outside, sit on the grass at minimum 15 minutes every day. And if you can do more, that would be even better. And some quiet time. Now, not just quiet time. Time where you're reading your Bible or meditating or journaling. Time where you're taking the time out of your day to focus on bringing down your mind. Guys, perceived threat versus real threat, it's still stress on your body. Just look up Dr. Joe Dispenza. All of his books, he has talks, he has videos where he shows the research, the literature on how this up here affects the healing ability of this down here. So going out and grounding and putting some quiet time, some meditating, some bringing down, and guys, I'm an Enneagram 8. If you guys follow the Enneagram, I'm a go, 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 go type of person. But even I have to stop and allow my brain to rest and allow my spirit to balance, to be well, both mentally and spiritually. So sitting out in the morning or sitting outside during the day, combine these two, and these are really powerful ways to be able to balance that HPA axis. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is chiropractic. Now, I'm a little biased. Yes, I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I'm a little biased more so because chiropractic changed my life. When I was at a time, they had cut out my thyroid. I felt like I was going through menopause at 21. I went to a chiropractor because I had been into a car accident, and he explained things to me about my body that none of the best doctors that I went to, an endocrinologist, could. And that's when my health was transformed. So I'm a little biased about that. But what we do know is that the brain communicates with the rest of your body by sending signals down your spinal cord and out through the nerves. So this brain, the hypothalamus, that balance is so important. Now, is it possible that trauma and accidents and wear and tear, let me go ahead and tell you, trauma is also looking down at your phone and driving with stress, okay, on your computers. All of that is affecting your stress levels. So a really interesting study they did is dysregulations of the HPA axis have been discussed as being part of chronic pain and fatigue. And the aim of the study was to investigate the possible dysregulation of the HPA axis in people that have had whiplash or been having whiplash disorder. And what they found is that people with chronic whiplash, so this whole movement here, had increased cortisol responses to awakening. And dysregulation of the HPA axis in terms of reduced reactivity and enhanced negative feedback suppression exist. What does this mean? Is that trauma affecting your HPA axis? We're seeing it here and in multiple studies looking at that. So getting your spine and nervous system checked, whether you're in pain or not, just looking to see what's there and helping your body balance and communicate, function, and heal better is what the goal is in our office when we adjust and when we check someone out. So 4 things that you can start doing today. And I'm going to add another thing here. On YouTube, Doctors Warren, right here, I have a video called Seed Cycling. That's another great way to support your hormone balance if there's something else going on. you can start there. So guys, leave a comment here if you have any questions, if you've implemented any of these, and make sure to share it. You never know how far reaching this information will get to someone who's looking for it.